Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Overcoming Your Trauma course. There will be multiple parts to help you really dig down deep into what is causing your trauma and how to heal it. So let's look at the overview for our course here. This is all the various topics we will be talking about. We will be diving deeper into these. We'll be talking more about them in depth and ultimately how you can deal with these. So our first thing up would be what causes trauma? What are the things in your life that end up causing you to have any sort of trauma? Then after that, we talk about your first steps. What are the steps that you will be taking in order to remedy your trauma, to overcome it, to be able to deal with it? Next, you will be able to talk about dealing with flashbacks and repressed memories. These are a hallmark when it comes to trauma. You will have flashbacks and you have memories that keep resurfacing. Next, we'll be diving deeper into dealing with anxiety and depression, which are also symptoms of trauma. You may deal with a lot of anxiety and deal with a lot of depression that will bring you down and control your life. Next, we'll be talking about dealing with inner hatred and blame. You are going to often blame yourself and have a hatred towards yourself or other people because of the trauma that you have endured. Then, after we have addressed all those, we're going to be preparing for healing and realizing that there is hope to being able to overcome your problems. There is hope. There is a light at the end of the tunnel for you to be able to get better. And then lastly, we're going to talk about the physical and spiritual healing, because it's not just about your own mental healing. No, it's also physical and spiritual changes you will notice and how to be prepared for those. So what is trauma? Trauma is the emotional response to a tragic event. This can be subjective in nature, and it often is, because what is traumatizing to one individual may not be traumatizing to another. It's going to vary in degrees of what is traumatizing. So, for example, there could be someone who has dealt with abandonment and abuse from their parents when they were young, and they would be severely traumatized. And then there would be someone else who dealt with the same exact thing and often they may not actually experience those negative things, and they may not actually be traumatized. It really all comes down to the individual, because we're all going to respond differently. But regardless of whatever the trauma is, it is some sort of emotional response that occurs during a tragic event. And whatever that tragic event is for you, it impacts your life. It doesn't matter how severe it is or how minute the detail is. Regardless of the situation, all of your trauma that you have dealt with impacts your life in some sort of way. So you have to be able to tackle that. There's also mental disorders that can be incorporated into trauma, primarily post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. This is probably the most common mental illness that stems from past trauma and past abuse. You will often be diagnosed with PTSD. Now, a lot of times we may think about PTSD when we're thinking about people who are in the military and who go to war and combat. That is certainly, something that ends up happening to people, but it also can stem really from any sort of traumatic event that happens throughout your life, primarily in childhood. There's also personality disorders that can be caused by the trauma that you have endured, because when you're dealing with trauma at such a young age, your mind shapes, your mind changes, and personality disorders of how your personality is shaped when you are younger will be influenced by that trauma. And then lastly, stress, anxiety, and depression. These are major things that happen when you have dealt with trauma. You will be under heavy stress, you will feel very anxious, and you will often feel very depressed, and you may not even know why. So these are all things that can stem from trauma, and it could lead to a variety of different disorders, such as, anxiety disorders, or even like major depression disorder. So is overcoming trauma possible? I want you to ask this question to yourself. Do you believe that the trauma that you have endured, do you think it is possible to overcome it? Be honest with yourself. Do you truly believe it? Because the honest truth is, yes, it is possible. Yes, you can overcome trauma. It may seem like it's too difficult, it's too hard, too much work, but it is possible to do it. I am a perfect example of this because I have dealt with so much trauma in my life, and I've been able to overcome it and not let it impact me the same way it did before. You're always going to deal with it to some degree, but I am so much better than I was before. I'm able to manage it so much more effectively, and so can you. The full course will be available. All you have to do is just become a member of the course tier, and you will be able to access the rest of this course in addition to any future courses that I will be making about a variety of different topics. So if you become a member, you will be able to access this course and the others in the future. So I want to thank you so very much, and I look forward to discussing this more in depth with you and how to overcome your trauma.